Tell me, O Muse, of that sagacious man who, having overthrown the sacred town of Ilium, wandered far across the restless salt of the deep. Listen to the silence between the waves, where the history of his wandering is written in the foam. He visited the capitals of many nations, and he learned the hidden customs of their dwellers, enduring great suffering on the unmeasured waters. His life was oft in peril, like a small boat in a great storm, as he labored to bring back his comrades to their homes. But he saved them not, though earnestly he strove. They perished all through their own folly, for they banqueted upon the oxen of the sun, the all-overlooking sun, who cut them off from their return. Breathe in the cool, damp air of the morning. The way is long, but it leads back to the center. Let us begin the account of his return. Now all the rest, as many as escaped the cruel doom of death, were at their homes, safe from the perils of the war and the sea, while him alone who pined to see his home and wife again, Calypso, the queenly nymph, detained within her spacious grot. She held him in the hope that he might yet become her husband. Even when the years brought round the time in which the gods decreed that he should reach again his dwelling place in Ithaca. The air in her cave smells of cloven cedar and burning cypress, a fragrance that drifts across the island. The waves lap against the shore with a rhythmic, hypnotic sound, a pulse that beats in time with the universe. Of all the gods, all pitied him save Neptune, who pursued with wrath implacable the godlike chief, Ulysses, even to his native land. Feel the weight of the sea, the vast, dark pressure of the deep. The way is blocked by the storm, but the internal compass remains true. Among the Ethiopians was the god Neptune, far off, where the world ends. He went to grace a hecatomb of beeves and lambs, and sat delighted at the feast. While in the palace of Olympian Jove, the other gods assembled. The father of immortals and of men was speaking. To his mind arose the thought of Aegisthus, and how mortals blame the gods for the ills they bear, though they bring sorrow on themselves by their own folly. The halls of Jove are silent, filled with a golden light that has no source. The air is still, like the surface of a mountain lake at dawn. Pallas, the blue-eyed goddess, spoke for the wretched Ulysses, so long detained upon a distant isle girt by the waters of the central deep. A forest isle, where dwells a deity, the daughter of wise Atlas, who holds the lofty columns which divide the earth from heaven. The balance of the world is maintained in the silence. Ulysses pines for his home, impatient to behold the smokes that rise from hearths in his own land. He would willingly die just to see the familiar horizon one last time. Jove answered with the voice of thunder, yet his heart was touched. He remembered the offerings Ulysses brought beside the Argive fleet. Why then, O Jove, art thou so wroth with him? The wrath of Neptune is like a rising tide, but the purpose of the gods is a steady current. Let us consult together and provide for his return. Neptune will lay by his wrath, for vain it were for one like him to strive alone against the might of all the immortal gods. The way opens when the ego yields to the celestial order. The struggle against the Tao only creates more chaos. Stillness is the only true strength. Pallas fastened underneath her feet the fair, ambrosial golden sandals worn to bear her over ocean like the wind. They carried her over the boundless land, silent and swift. In her hand she took the mighty spear, heavy and huge and strong. From the Olympian heights, she plunged and stood among the men of Ithaca. Just at the porch and threshold of their chief, she took the shape of Mentes. There before the gate she found the haughty suitors, beguiling the time with draughts, sitting on the hides of beeves. The air is thick with the smell of roasted meat and heavy wine. Telemachus was the first to see the goddess, sad at heart as he sat among the crowd. He thought of his father, who might come and scatter those who filled his palace halls. The movement of the goddess is effortless, the embodiment of Wu-Wei. Telemachus sprang forth, for he could not bear to keep a stranger waiting at his door. He took her right hand and received the brazen spear, speaking winged words of welcome. First come and share our feast, and be refreshed. Then say what thou requirest at our hands. He led the way, and in his steps Pallas Athene followed. Entering the lofty halls, he set the spear upright by a tall column in the armory. He placed his guest upon a throne, over which he spread a covering many-hued and beautiful. The texture of the cloth is soft, the threads woven with care. A maid poured water for the hands from a shapely ewer of gold. The water is cool and clear, washing away the dust of the road. Hospitality is the alignment of the hearth with the creative order of the all. The haughty suitors came in and took their places on the thrones and couches. They shared the banquet on the board, while to the brim boys filled the beakers. When hunger was appeased, they thought of song and the dance. Phineus the minstrel struck the chords and began his lay. But Telemachus leaned forward to the stranger and spoke in a low voice. These revelers enjoy the harp and song, for at no cost of theirs they waste the substance of another man. A man whose white bones are now moldering in the rain upon some mainland, or tossed by ocean billows. The son's heart is heavy, like a stone in a stream. He fears his father is lost forever, but the goddess knows the way. The balance of the house has been disturbed, and it must be restored. Pallas, the blue-eyed goddess, answered the youth. I am named Mentes, and I come across the dark blue deep in quest of brass. I am come because I heard thy father had at last returned, but now I am certain that the gods delay his journey hither. The illustrious man cannot have died, but is detained alone somewhere upon the ocean. There do cruel men and savage keep him. But I deem that he will not long be an exile from his own dear land. He has large invention, and will plan a way for his escape. Look at the boy. In face and glorious eyes he resembles his father exceedingly. The lineage is strong, like the roots of an ancient oak. The seed of the father is growing in the son. Telemachus spoke with a prudent mind. My mother says I am his son. I know not. Would I were the son of one whose happier lot it was to meet amidst his own estates the approach of age. Now the most wretched of the sons of men is he to whom they say I owe my birth. Pallas replied, the gods ordain not that thy race should be inglorious. But tell me, what is this assembly? What feast is here? It cannot be a wedding. So riotously goes the revel on throughout the palace. A well-judging man would be moved with anger at the shameful things they do. The imbalance of Ithaca is like a fever in the blood. The suitors have forgotten the way, and their feet are on the path to ruin. Telemachus explained the mystery of his father's fate. The gods have grown unkind and willed it otherwise. They make his fate a mystery beyond the fate of other men. He has become the prey of harpies, perishing ingloriously. and the chiefs of all the isles have come to woo my mother and consume my substance. They waste my heritage, and soon will seek my life." Pallas spoke in grief and anger. "Yea, greatly dost thou need the absent chief Ulysses here. Were he to come and stand before the palace gate with helm and buckler, short would be the lives of these shameless suitors. But whether he returns or not, rests only with the gods. The way of the gods is a slow, grinding wheel." Pallas gave counsel to the youth. "Tomorrow thou shalt call the Achaean chiefs to an assembly. Command the suitors all to separate for their homes. Man thy best ship with 20 rowers, and go forth to seek news of thy absent father. Shape thy course for Pylos and then to Sparta. If thou learn that he lives, have patience yet a year. But if he be no more, return and pile his monument on high. No longer shouldst thou act as if thou wert a boy. Thou hast outgrown the age of childish sports. Be bold, that men hereafter born may give thee praise. The movement toward the Father is the movement toward the source. The Tao of the Son is to seek the shadow of the Father." Pallas withdrew, ascending like a bird. She filled his heart with strength and courage, waking vividly his father's memory. Telemachus went forth among the suitors, silent and changed. Penelope heard the minstrel's song and came down from her chamber. She asked him to cease the sad strain, for it cut her to the heart. But Telemachus answered, "Reprove not the minstrel. Withdraw into thy chamber and ply thy household tasks. To say what words beseem a feast belongs to man, and most to me. Within these walls, the authority is mine." The queen withdrew, wondering at his words. The son is becoming the master. The balance of the household begins to shift. The way of the house is being reclaimed. Telemachus addressed the suitors with courageous words. "I bid you all meet in council tomorrow, that I may give you warning to depart. But if it seem to you the better way to plunder one man's goods, go on to waste my substance. I will call the immortal gods to aid me." The suitors bit their lips, astonished at his speech. Antinous replied, "The gods have taught thee how to frame grand sentences. Ne'er may Jove make thee king over sea-girt Ithaca." Telemachus rejoined, "I would accept the kingly station if conferred. I will be the lord of mine own house. The conflict is inevitable, but the way is through the storm. The boy is no longer a child. The seed has cracked the soil." The suitors turned to the dance and song, waiting for the evening. The evening with its shadowy blackness came, and each withdrew to sleep. Telemachus went up to his lofty chamber, built high in that magnificent palace. Dame Eurycleia went up with him, bearing lighted torches. She had nursed him in his tender years, and loved him more than all the other maids. He sat upon the couch and put his soft tunic off, placing it in the matron's hands. She folded it and smoothed it, and then went forth, closing the door. He, lapped in the soft fleeces, all night long thought of the voyage. The air is cold outside, but the room is warm with the memory of the goddess. The way is clear in his mind. When the morning, child of dawn, appeared, the son of Ulysses left his bed. He hung his trenchant sword upon his shoulders, and made fast his shapely sandals. He issued from his chamber like a god. He bade the heralds call the Greeks to council. The chiefs assembled, and Telemachus went to the council, bearing a brazen spear. Pallas shed a heavenly beauty over him. He took the seat of his father, and the aged men made way. Aegeus, a hero bowed with age, was the first to speak. He asked who summoned the assembly, for no council had been held since Ulysses departed. A just and generous mind he deemed was his. The air is fresh and full of hope. Telemachus rose to speak, holding the scepter. Mine chiefly is the trouble, he said. I have lost an excellent father, who was king among you, and a greater evil will soon o'erthrow my house. Suitors press round my unwilling mother, and they waste my substance utterly. They hold high festival, and drink the purple wine with unbounded waste. There is no man like Ulysses to repel the mischief. I am a weakling, immature in valor. If I had the power, I would resist, for these men do insufferable things. He spoke with anger and clashed the scepter to the earth, shedding tears. The people felt compassion. The imbalance is visible to all. The way of justice is being ignored. Antinous arose and blamed Penelope. She is skilled in crafty shifts, he said. For 3 years she has deceived the Grecian youths. She laid upon the loom a web, delicate and vast, and said she must finish it as a shroud for Laertes. Every night she unraveled it by torchlight. But a woman who knew all revealed the mystery. We saw her unraveling the ample web. Send thy mother hence, and require her to wed. We will consume thy substance, as long as she holds her present mood. The web is a symbol of the Tao, the constant cycle of weaving and unweaving. The suitors see only the fraud, not the devotion. Stillness in the midst of action. Telemachus refused to dismiss his mother. It would be a grievous wrong, he said. If ye bear a sense of injury, go from these halls and provide for other feasts. But if ye waste my substance, I shall call the eternal gods to aid me. Jove sent flying from a lofty mountaintop 2 eagles. They floated on the wind, close to each other with wings outspread. But as they came over the crowd, they clapped their heavy pinions, looking down with deadly omen. They tore each other's cheeks and necks, and then darted to the right. All who beheld were amazed. The flight of birds is the writing of fate in the sky. The way is being revealed. The storm is coming. Halitherses, the aged hero, read the omen. Ulysses will not be long at a distance, he said. Even now he is not far, and meditates slaughter and death to all the suitor train. All things that I predicted are fulfilled. But Eurymachus answered the seer with scorn. Go to thy house and prophesy to thy boys. Ulysses far away has perished. We do not fear Telemachus, nor care for the empty oracle. Telemachus asked for a vessel to visit Pylos and Sparta. If I learn that my father lives, I will wait a 12-month. But if he be no more, I shall return and give my mother to a second spouse. The decision is made, and the movement begins. The way is forward. Mentor, once comrade of the excellent Ulysses, spoke in anger to the people. No one remembers the divine Ulysses more among the people over whom he ruled benignly. But Leocritus rejoined that it would be hard for the prince to drive them from the feast. The people were dismissed and went to their homes. Telemachus went to the ocean side and washed his hands in the gray surf. He prayed to the deity who commanded him to traverse the black deep. Straightway Pallas stood by his side, in the form of Mentor. Thou henceforth shalt not lack valor or wisdom, she said. If with thee abides thy father's gallant spirit, thou wilt not vainly make this voyage. The salt water is cold on his skin, but his heart is warm. Go now hence among the suitors and make ready the needful stores, Pallas said. Wine in jars and meal in close thick skins. I will cause a swift bark to be fitted out, and will myself attend thee. Telemachus obeyed and hastened home. He saw the arrogant suitors flaying goats and roasting swine. Antinous mocked him, but Telemachus withdrew his hand. He went down to the high-vaulted room of his father, where lay heaps of gold and brass, and casks of delicate old wine, a drink for gods, stood in rows against the wall. Eurycleia kept diligent watch. He told her to draw sweet wine into jars and put meal into well-sewn skins. The secret must be kept. The way is often hidden from the world. The nurse sobbed and wept, fearing for the only son. But Telemachus assured her his design was not without the sanction of a god. Swear not to let my mother know until 11 days shall pass. Pallas took on herself the semblance of Telemachus, and ranged the city. She begged a ship from Noemon, and gathered a willing crew. The sun went down, and the city streets lay all in shadow. She drew the ship into the sea, and brought the stores on board. She poured a gentle sleep over the suitors in the palace. Their senses wandered, and their hands let fall the goblets. The power of the Tao is like sleep, it overcomes without effort. The movement is quiet and irresistible. Telemachus and his comrades brought the sea stores to the galley. Pallas embarked and sat at the stern, while the crew cast loose the fastenings. She sent a favoring breeze, a fresh wind from the west that murmuring swept the dark blue main. They raised the fir tree mast and spread the shining sails on high. The steady wind swelled out the canvas, and the ship moved on. The dark sea roared round her keel as swiftly through the waves she cleft her way. They poured out libations to the ever-living gods. Through all that night, and all the ensuing morn they held their way. The rhythm of the oars is the heartbeat of the voyage. The destination is the source. Telemachus wept at the hearing of his father's name. Helen approached, like Dian of the golden distaff. She questioned who the strangers were, and remarked on the youth's resemblance to Ulysses. Menelaus agreed, noting his feet, his hands, and the cast of his eye. Pisistratus confirmed he was the son of that hero. Bitterly a son must lament the absence of a father when there are none to shelter him from wrong. Menelaus wished that Ulysses might engage the suitors. He told of his detention in Egypt and how he consulted the sea god Proteus. The Ancient of the Deep knows all the distances of the ocean. The way back is through the sacrifice of the self. Pisistratus, a son of Nestor, welcomed them to the feast. He gave the golden goblet first to Pallas, who prayed to Neptune for a safe return. Telemachus prayed in words like hers. After they had banqueted, Nestor inquired who they were. Telemachus replied boldly, for Pallas strengthened his heart. I came to ask concerning my great father, Ulysses, who laid waste the town of Ilium. We have heard where all the rest were cut off, but his fate alone Jove hath not revealed. Relate the manner of his mournful death, if thou didst see it. Do not soften the history through tenderness to me. The truth is a sharp blade, but it is necessary for growth. The way of the son is to face the truth of the father. Nestor spoke of the sufferings at Troy. 9 years in harassing the foe we passed, beleaguering them and planning wiles innumerable. There was none who might presume to vie in wisdom with Ulysses. Stratagem was his gift. I look on thee amazed. All thy discourse is just like his. Ulysses and I never spoke on different sides, but consulted how to guide the Achaeans. But after we set sail for home, Jove ordained a sad return. For all were neither wise nor just, and many drew upon themselves an evil doom. The wrath of Pallas was kindled. The way of the many is often the way of destruction. True wealth is the wisdom of the few who remain in alignment. Nestor told how the Greeks were scattered. Some turned their galleys back to please Agamemnon, but I fled with my vessels, perceiving that some god was meditating evil. We reached Geraestus in the night and made offerings to Neptune. I reached my home and knew not who was saved or who had perished. But I have heard that the son of Agamemnon took vengeance upon the murderer Aegisthus. Thou too, my friend, be thou brave, that men in time to come may give thee praise. Telemachus wished for an equal power to avenge himself, but the gods deny such fortune to me, and all that now is left is to bear. Endurance is the strength of the willow that bends in the wind. Nestor encouraged the youth, suggesting that Pallas might favor him as she did his father. I ne'er have seen the gods so openly befriend a man as Pallas befriended Ulysses. Telemachus could not believe it, but Pallas said, "Easily can a god in the most distant regions safely keep a man. I would rather reach my home securely after many hardships than perish suddenly on my return." Agamemnon perished by the guile of Aegisthus and the queen. Even the gods have not the power to save whom they cherish from the common doom of the last long sleep. The way of the mortal is to accept the season of death. The Tao of the gods is the eternal spring. Stillness is the ultimate destination. Nestor spoke further of the rules of right and prudence. He described how Aegisthus corrupted Agamemnon's queen with flattering words. At first, she turned away with horror, for her heart was right. But when fate had spread a net for his destruction, Aegisthus led her to his own palace. On the 8th year, Orestes returned and cut off that man of blood. Nestor warned Telemachus not to be long away from home, lest the lawless crew devour his substance. Go and visit Menelaus, who has just come from strange lands. The sun went down and the darkness crept over the earth. They poured libations and thought of rest. The day's work is done, and the mind must return to the center. Nestor detained them, for he would not have the son of Ulysses lie upon a galley's deck while he was living. He had mantles and blankets beautifully wrought. Pallas agreed that Telemachus should remain, while she repaired to the ship to encourage the crew. "I am eldest of them all," she said. "Tonight I sleep within the hull of our black ship." She passed like an eagle out of sight, and all were seized with deep amazement. Nestor took the hand of Telemachus and recognized the goddess. "Deign to favor us, O queen. I will bring to thee a yearling steer with gilded horns." The presence of the divine is a heavy, beautiful weight. The way is marked by the signs of the immortals. Nestor led them to his glorious palace, and they took their places on the couches. He mingled a bowl of delicate wine, 11 years old. After libations, they went to sleep. Telemachus rested upon a sumptuous couch within the echoing hall. Soon as the rosy-fingered morning appeared, Nestor went abroad and took his seat on smooth white stones. Stones that glistened as with oil. He called his sons to aid in the sacrifice to Pallas. "Bring a heifer from the field and a goldsmith to plate its horns with gold." The artisan prepared the metal and wound it about the horns. The ritual is the bridge between the seen and the unseen. The way is maintained through the reverence of the old forms. The bullock was slain, and the daughters of the king broke forth in shrilly cries. The blood flowed dark, and the life left its limbs. They hewed the joints apart and roasted the flesh. Polycast gave Telemachus the bath and shed rich oil over him. He issued from the bath like a god in presence. After the feast, Nestor bade his sons join the steeds to the car for Telemachus to depart. The matron laid bread and wine and dainties within the car. Pisistratus grasped the reins and urged on the coursers. They darted toward the plain and left behind the lofty Pylos. The speed of the horses is the pulse of the movement. The way continues through the changing landscape. They reached Sparta and the palace of the glorious Menelaus. They found him at a wedding banquet for his daughter and his son. The palace was like the splendor of the sun and moon. They bathed and were arrayed in fleecy cloaks. Menelaus welcomed them to the banquet. Telemachus admired the sheen of brass and gold and ivory. Menelaus told of his suffering and wandering for 8 years before landing on this coast. "I have lost a palace full of rare things," he said, "but I grieve most for one hero, Ulysses, who brought so much to pass. Whether he be living or dead, we know not. The memory of the father is a constant shadow." Telemachus wept at the hearing of his father's name. Helen approached, like Dian of the golden distaff. She questioned who the strangers were, and remarked on the youth's resemblance to Ulysses. Menelaus agreed, noting his feet, his hands, and the cast of his eye. Pisistratus confirmed he was the son of that hero. Bitterly a son must lament the absence of a father when there are none to shelter him from wrong. Menelaus wished that Ulysses might engage the suitors. He told of his detention in Egypt and how he consulted the sea god Proteus. The Ancient of the Deep knows all the distances of the ocean. The way back is through the sacrifice of the self. Proteus would count his sea calves, and then lie down as a shepherd midst his flock. Menelaus and his men lay in ambush, covered with the skins of newly flayed sea calves. The noisome smell was beyond endurance, but the goddess brought ambrosia to relieve them. When the sun reached middle heaven, the aged seer emerged and counted the creatures. They rushed upon him and caught him, but he took many shapes: a lion, a serpent, a panther, a huge boar, and even flowing water and a tall tree. But they held him fast until he was wearied out. He revealed that Ulysses was kept by Calypso on her island. The Tao of the sea is to change, but the Tao of the heart is to hold fast. Menelaus offered Telemachus munificent gifts, but the youth pined for his home. "In Ithaca are no broad grounds for coursing," he said. "It is a land of goats and rocks, but it is mine." Menelaus smiled and gave him a cup of silver with a brim of gold. Meantime, the suitors in Ithaca learned of the voyage and were troubled. Antinous planned an ambush to slay the prince on his return. Penelope heard of the plot and was overpowered by anguish. She lay piteously lamenting on the threshold. Pallas sent a phantom to her in a dream to comfort her. "Thy son shall return," the phantom said. "The way is protected, even when the darkness seems absolute." Mercury was dispatched by Jove to Calypso's isle. He bound beneath his feet his golden sandals and flew over the waste of waves. He found the nymph within her vast cave, where a fire of cedar and cypress blazed. She was singing as she threw the golden shuttle. Ulysses was not within, but sat upon the shore, gazing with wet eyes on the barren deep. Mercury delivered the message of Jove. "Let him depart." Calypso shuddered and complained of the envy of the gods. But no god can resist the purpose of Jove. The way is opened by the command of the highest. Even the immortals must submit to the order of the All. Calypso found Ulysses by the deep, and told him he might depart. She bade him hew down trees and bind them into a raft. Ulysses shuddered, fearing another fraud, but she swore the great oath of the gods that she designed no harm. He felled 20 trees and squared their trunks with sharp steel. He bored the beams and made them fast with nails and clamps. On the 5th day she dismissed him, newly from the bath, and arrayed in fragrant garments. He spread his canvas joyfully to catch the breeze. For 17 days he held his course, keeping the Great Bear on his left. The way is a craft, a building of the self. Neptune saw him from the mountain heights of Solyma and burned with wrath. He summoned the hurricanes and covered earth and sky with mists. A huge and frightful billow broke over the raft, and Ulysses was plunged into the deep. His hands let go the rudder, and the mast was snapped in twain. He clung to the beams, buffeted by the rolling billows. Leucothea saw him and took pity, giving him her veil for safety. "Lay aside thy garments, and swim for the land of the Phaeacians," she said. "The storm is the trial of the internal balance. The way is through the water, leaving everything behind." Ulysses swam for 2 days and nights, his heart foreboding death. But when the 3rd day came, the winds were laid, and he saw the land. It was a welcome sight of woods and fields, but the rocks were sharp and the breakers roared. A huge wave hurled him toward the rugged coast, but Pallas prompted him to clutch the rock. The skin was flayed from his hands. He found the mouth of a soft-flowing river and prayed for mercy. The river stayed its current and gave him a safe landing. He lay down among the reeds and kissed the harvest-bearing earth. He buried himself in a pile of leaves, and Pallas poured sleep over his eyes. Stillness follows the storm. Nausicaa, the daughter of King Alcinous, was led by Pallas to the river to wash her marriage robes. After the task, they played at ball, and their cries awakened Ulysses. He emerged from the thicket like a mountain lion, naked and fouled with sea foam. The maidens fled, but Nausicaa kept her place. Ulysses spoke with gentle words, entreating her for a robe and to show him the city. She saw that he was not a base man, and gave him food and wine and garments. Pallas caused him to appear of statelier size and majestic mien. The way of the wanderer is to find grace in the eyes of others. Harmony is restored through the kindness of the stranger. Ulysses entered the Phaeacian city, shrouded in a mist by Pallas. He admired the haven and the gallant ships. He reached the king's stately palace, where the walls were of brass and the doors of gold. A glory shone as of the sun or moon. He entered the hall and clasped the knees of Queen Arete. The mist vanished, and all were struck mute. He asked for an escort to his own dear country. Alcinous raised him from the ashes and seated him on a shining throne. They feasted, and the king promised to send him home. The wanderer has found a temporary center. The internal order begins to reflect the external environment. At the public games, Ulysses was challenged and scoffed at by Euryalus. The hero frowned and seized a heavier quoit than any used by the Phaeacians. He sent it forth with a vigorous arm, and it flew beyond all other marks. He then challenged any to boxing, wrestling, or the foot race. "I am not ill in any games practiced among mankind," he said. Alcinous, seeing his prowess, bade the dancers tread their measures. The minstrel sang the loves of Mars and Venus, a tale of guile and justice. The rhythm of the dance is the movement of the stars. The way is found in the joy of the festival. Strength is proven through the trial of the body. Alcinous bade the princes bestow gifts upon the stranger. Each brought a well-bleached cloak, a tunic, and a talent of gold. Euryalus appeased him with a silver-studded sword. At the evening feast, Ulysses asked the bard to sing of the wooden horse and the fall of Troy. As he heard the song, tears dropped from his lids and wet his cheeks. He wept as a wife weeps for a husband slain in battle. Alcinous marked his grief and asked his name and his story. The time of hiding is over. The way requires the declaration of the self. To return, one must first be known. Stillness is found in the truth. "I am Ulysses, son of Laertes," he said. "My fame hath reached to heaven." He told of the Ciconians and the Lotus Eaters, whose food is flowers. Whoever tasted of that sweet food wished not to see his native country more. He told of the land of the Cyclops, a lawless race who plant not nor plow. He entered the cave of Polyphemus, who devoured his comrades. He blinded the giant with a sharpened stake of olive wood. "Nomen is my name," he told the giant. "The craft of the mind overcomes the strength of the brute. The way is through the narrow passage of the clever spirit. Balance is regained by the use of the intellect." Ulysses told of Aeolus and the bag of winds. His crew untied the sack while he slept, and the winds rushed forth. They were driven back from the shores of Ithaca. He told of the Laestrygonians, who destroyed his ships and speared his friends like fishes. He alone escaped in his black ship and reached the Isle of Circe. She transformed his men to swine, but Ulysses, aided by Hermes, resisted her drugs. He stayed with her a full year, banqueting on plenteous meats, but the heart pined for the native land. The way is often delayed by the pleasures of the senses. One must wake from the dream to continue the voyage. He visited the land of the dead to consult the seer Tiresias. He saw the souls of the departed flitting like bats. He saw his mother and the ghosts of the heroes who fell at Troy. Achilles said he would rather be a laborer on earth than reign over the dead. Tiresias warned him of the wrath of Neptune and the oxen of the sun. He sailed past the sirens, his ears open while he was bound to the mast. He passed between Scylla and Charybdis, where the sea was like a cauldron on a fire. 6 of his men were snatched by the monster of the rocks. The path is narrow and full of peril. The way demands a heavy price for the return to balance. His comrades, gaunt with famine, slew the oxen of the sun. Jove smote the ship with a thunderbolt, and all perished save Ulysses. He floated on the keel for 9 days until he reached Ogygia. The Phaeacians heard his tale with mute delight. They loaded him with gifts and bore him asleep in a swift bark to Ithaca. They laid him on the sands with his treasures and departed. Neptune, in his wrath, transformed their ship to a rock before their town. Ulysses woke in his own land, but knew it not, for Pallas had cast a mist around him. He wept, thinking he had been abandoned. The return is often as strange as the wandering. Pallas appeared as a young shepherd, and revealed that he was in Ithaca. Ulysses rejoiced but spoke with artful words, hiding his identity. The goddess smiled and touched him with her wand, transforming him into an old beggar. She withered his skin and dimmed his glorious eyes. She gave him rags and a staff. "Go to the swineherd Eumaeus," she said. He found the loyal servant and was welcomed with a meal of pork. He told a feigned story of his life. Telemachus returned from his voyage and met his father in the lodge. Pallas restored Ulysses' form, and the son recognized the father with many tears. The two began to plan the destruction of the suitors. The way of vengeance is the way of restoration. Ulysses entered his palace as a beggar and was insulted and smitten. Penelope proposed the contest of the bow. Not one of the suitors could bend the sturdy weapon. But Ulysses took it and bent it with ease, sending an arrow through the 12 rings. He cast his rags aside and began the slaughter. Antinous was the first to fall. With Telemachus and the loyal servants, he slew them all. Penelope was awakened and recognized her lord by the mystery of their bed. A covenant of peace was made between Ulysses and his people by the aid of Pallas. The way has come to its end, and the house is in balance. The talio of return is complete. Sleep now, for the storm has passed. The hearth is warm. Stillness is everywhere.